Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Islam has been in Kenya for a very long time now, almost more than 10 centuries. And Muslims equally have been in Kenya for a very long time. And in our previous shows, we have taken an effort to go out and ask the wider Kenyan society what they thought about Muslims and Islam in Kenya. And tonight, to discuss about the concerns that have been raised by the non-Muslim community in Kenya, we are privileged to have our brother who is also a Sharia law expert and also a financial analyst, Brother Jafar Muhammad. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Brother Jafar Muhammad, in our previous episodes, we took an effort to go out into the community and ask them what they thought about Islam and Muslims in Kenya. And the response that we got was, albeit very shocking, in terms of the issues that came up. One of the issues that came up was that though Islam has been in Kenya for a very long time, we're talking about centuries ago, that most of the people still remain very ignorant about Islam. Why do you think this is the situation?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First and foremost, thank you very much for this opportunity and for the Horizon TV to host me here today. The issue of Muslims or Islam not being seen in the mainstream, or what you may call that, it has not penetrated the whole of Kenya. This issue can only be understood in the context of how actually Kenya came to be. We cannot be able to understand how Islam was actually limited in terms of penetration if we are not going to understand the effect of colonialism to the wider Kenyan context. You realize very well, and from your introduction, is that Islam has been in Kenya for quite a long time, but it has been limited in the coastal strip area and it not get the opportunity to move inwardly. And true to that, that the colonial system that was operational in Kenya formulated a system whereby Islam could not be able to move inward. And this is because when the colonialists came to Kenya, actually they did not come to Kenya for purposes of commercial enterprise only, but you also realize that they came along with the missionaries, who their main intention was to spread the word of God, so to speak. Now you had the world vision on this other end that is represented by Muslims who look at things differently and they have the whole understanding of the world from a completely different perspective. Then you have this other part or this other group of Christians, missionaries coming into Kenya to propagate the Christianity, and at the same time the colonialists came forward for purposes of their own economic enterprise. Now this clash could not be able to assist the Muslims to move deeper inside. That is one thing. The other thing is that Islam as a religion and Christianity is also as a religion, Muslims traditionally got their force and power from the original traditional centers of power. This is, say, the holy cities of Mecca, Medina, and at that specific time, it was resided in Turkey, current Turkey. But understanding the concept globally as well, you will realize that the Muslim power is actually diminishing. And the Western power was on the rise. With the advancement in technology and advancement in warfare, it propelled their view, and they had to come out very strongly to ensure that not only the economic enterprise prospers, but also the religion and the beliefs, the worldview that they have could also prosper. So the lack of support from the center of power to the Muslims, either technologically or either morally or from the support point of view, affected widely the morale of the Muslim at the coastal strip to penetrate inward.
As a Sharia expert, and maybe this one you would know better than me, as Muslims we expected, Islam expected these things to happen. Our Holy Prophet ﷺ, had seen all these, and he guided us towards a situation whereby we should have been able to overcome this. Why do I say this? Every Muslim is supposed to do dawah and to be a dai, and we're supposed to be dais through our behavior, through our general conduct in society, through how we engage with other people. Why haven't we taken advantage of the traditional Islamic culture in light of that challenge that you have mentioned?
Well, first, a bigger portion of those immigrants, so I may say, who came to the coastal strip with many narrations suggesting that most of them maybe came to these areas because they were facing some political persecution from that other end. Having said that, you will realize that even the advancement of Islam in the coastal area, it is not a dedicated initiative, so to speak, but it was through interaction, intermarriage, normal business processes that actually made the local community to convert to Islam. I must say that there was no intention from the immigrants, intentionally or even professionalizing, so to speak, the da'wah activity, so that we take it upon ourselves to move inwardly to spread Islam. If you compare that with how the missionary came on board, is that their main objective, rather than actually even assisting the colonialists to advance the economic enterprise, they actually had an intention of converting the local communities who are not civilized to a civilized form of life. So I may say also it was lack of the responsibilities from Muslims from their end to penetrate inward, to carry the burden of propagating the religion, because definitely what they got themselves in terms of learning Islam and the teachings of Islam, and when they embraced it, they should have taken that responsibility. But interestingly, even the same behavior is not different from what is happening today. Muslims will always believe that they are Muslims, and most of the time they're sufficiently happy that they're Muslims without taking the task of taking it forward to non-Muslims and explain to them the beautiful part of this religion. That is why you get all these negative notions about Islam being associated with many other things, and the whole perception about Islam, it's either negative or it's not there completely.
Well, Kenya is a very heavily Balkanized country whereby everything is done via the ethnicity and all that. Now you have that Islam in some communities, and in other communities it is almost absent, completely absent. What can we do to change this kind of situation? Because as Muslims, we pride ourselves in being the only religion which encompasses everybody. It is open to everybody. But yet in Kenya, it is confined to certain communities. Well,
Confinement of Islam to certain communities is not entirely, I must say, not entirely the exact description of what it is. But majorly you will find Muslims in majority. You will find them predominantly in a certain specific area or specific geographical positions in this country. The responsibility from our end, and actually this is going to help a lot, and if you were to interrogate more literature on how Islam spread in the coastal area, you'll find that even the local community did not only embrace Islam as a way of life, but it came in and changed their status completely, and diluted the affiliation that are localized. like I come from a specific tribe and you come from a specific tribe. And when you see this kind of behavior, that tribal affiliation taking center stage other than the identity, which is a big identity of Islam, it's because there are failures in our own endeavors to ensure that we Muslims as well live to the expectation of our teachings. So the issue of these other tribes or these other groups of Kenyans converting to Islam, it is something that can be easily achieved. And this is because it resonates more closely to human beings, so to speak. Secondly, is also something which is deflates so much of contradiction that maybe you as a person and the surrounding environment will force the contradiction to exist. Islam will come and take it off. So you will see consistency in your life. You will see that there are no many contradictions in how you're going to interact with your community, with yourself, and even the relationship between you and the Almighty.
One of the basic concerns of the non-Muslim community in Kenya as regards Muslims is that we are a closed shop. Are we really a closed shop? And one of the examples that was used is they say that any other time they want to engage with Muslims, Muslims are only willing to engage with them from a position of superiority. And they use the example of the people in Mandera, whereby they say, look, the non-Muslims are only doing the menial lower jobs. They cannot be integrated into part of the larger, wider society whereby they could maybe even hold positions. And they kept on, poking holes and say, please tell us in the predominantly Muslim areas, how come we do not have non-Muslims in any meaningful positions of leadership?
Well, the issues of certain community moving to a certain area and not taking high position is something that I cannot expound on it, so to speak, because maybe there are other issues that are not well cut out in that. But coming to the issue of that, when they engage Muslims, they engage them from a position of superiority. First, maybe we need to put something very clear here, is that Islam was not sent to a specific group of people. Islam came down as a religion that should guide the whole humanity. And from the seerah or the history of the Prophet, peace be upon him, you will realize that his father died and he was not a Muslim. His grandfather died and he was not a Muslim. His uncles, some of them were never Muslims. And the whole society in the Arabian Peninsula were not Muslims. But the Prophet, peace be upon him, engaged them. Not in form that I have come with something, I'm superior than you. No, but the message is superior. The message itself, it's superior. So maybe by reference to the message, you become superior. That's another discussion altogether. Yes. Another thing is, all cultures are more or less the same. Anything that elevates a culture, it should be something outside the surrounding of the culture itself. A Jew will never claim to be perfect. An Indian will never claim to be perfect. A Somali will never claim to be perfect. Somebody from Western Kenya will never claim to be perfect for only one reason, that he comes from that specific group of people. There must be something outside the community that should give it more position. And in this case, if I were to bring in another issue of the missionaries, you'll find when they came to Kenya, the notion was that we are superior, not only in race, but whatever they're holding in terms of civilization, in terms of the Christian message, they felt that they're more superior than the local community. Yes. That superiority should not be reflected in Islam. Actually, we should be looking to people who are not Muslim with the eyes of mercy, with the eyes of what we have should be given to this other group of people. Because this is a religion that has accepted Moses, it has accepted Jesus, and it has accepted the last of the prophets. Well, the Jews have only accepted Moses. The Christians, they've only accepted Jesus. So we've accepted the whole group of messengers sent down, and they are part and parcel of the whole chain of the prophets. So we are looking at them with the eyes of mercy, not being superior per se, but definitely the Quran is superior. Definitely the teachings of the prophets is superior. It is not parallel to any other teaching, and that is something that is known to almost everyone. Before
we shall be taking a break, and when we come back, we shall look at the role of the masjid in the affairs of the community. Viewers, tonight we are privileged to be hosting Brother Jafar Muhammad, who is a Sharia law expert and also a financial analyst. And we are looking at the responses that we need to give to the non-Muslim community in Kenya as regards to what they think about Muslims and Islam in Kenya. Welcome.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Welcome back to the show. Tonight we are privileged to be hosting Brother Jafar Muhammad, a Sharia law expert, and we are responding to the concerns that have been raised by the non-Muslim community as regards the affairs of Islam and Muslims in Kenya. Brother Jafar Muhammad, the mosque is known to be the epicenter of all Islamic activities. And most of the non-Muslims in Kenya are talking about never having been inside a mosque and not even knowing the activities that go on in a mosque. Yet we do have the churches, they're holding all sorts of activities and people are congregating around the church. You know, they become the epicenter of activities. Why the difference?
Well, this is a question that you need to look at it from multiple perspectives. First, I would like to point out something very, very important, is that historically, mosques used to play a very, very pivotal role in the society. But that diminished with the diminishing influence of religion, religious practices in the general public domain. And this is again part of the effect of colonialism, not only in Kenya, but in the vast Muslim majority countries. And anywhere you will find Muslims, that role has always been diminished. That is one. Second, it's also the teachings or the education system, the Muslim education system, the way it has traditionally been handled, has failed to produce leaders who can be able to pull Muslims together and convert the mosque from a normal house of prayer to an area where Muslims will congregate, discuss their issues, come up with solutions, and give guidance not only to the Muslim community, but even to the general public. Remember, we've said that this religion, it is not a religion that is supposed to be secluded, because it gives solutions to many, many problems that faces the humanity in general. So when the caliber of scholars, it is not up to task, when the level of education given to what you have today as Muslim leaders, it's also not enough to give them the ability to articulate Muslim problems more clearly and give guidance to the society. You've mentioned the role of the church. You will agree with me that most of the church leaders are well educated. Most of them participated in many, many of the activities in this country. Many of them will come out and speak about how they would love to see this country being managed and governed. But hardly will you speak, hardly will you find Muslim scholars, so to put it, whom they've really understood the problems, come out with a solution that is not only contemporary solutions, but even anchored in our religion and will reflect the will and the wishes of Muslims in total, and at the same time give guidance to this country, because we are part and parcel of this society.
Well, don't you think that by responding in that manner, it is self-incriminating between you and me, who are still youthful? Because what you're simply trying to say is, we've realized that there is a gap in our leadership, and we need to fill in this gap, yet me and you have not filled that gap. And this I say in response to the fact that the concern from the non-Muslim community is that as Muslims, we are not effectively participating in the affairs of the country. We have kept ourselves aside and we've let them do everything, and yet when they do it their way, we get to complain.
There is nothing wrong by incriminating yourself. That is the truth. Because if you want to analyze the problems of this society, then you need to come out very clean about it. Me and you failing to play our role, maybe that is not entirely correct, because as it is, everybody is playing his role to a certain level. And maybe what is needed now more than ever is that Muslims need to come together, discuss of exactly what needs to be done. The issues of education, empowerment, even of our local imams, should be actually something that should be given a priority, because an imam is a leader. If the imam fails to address the congregation in a proper way, and is only seen to be somebody who is there to lead prayers, or somebody who is called for functions, and somebody who has no ability whatsoever to guide, the general Muslim population is filled with doctors, engineers, lawyers, and all that. Where do they get the guidance if they cannot be able to get it from their imams? If the imam is not capable of understanding the surrounding and giving out solutions, then it's become excessively difficult. You also appreciate that you have many schools in this country that are being run by the Catholics or generally by the church, and some of the best schools, so to speak, and they've given out the best brains in this country, which is a credit which we need to give it to them. And you will find most of the leaders in the Christian circles are people who are well educated in Christian theology, but at the same time they have these other studies. They're either political scientists or sociologists or whatever it is. Even community work, education system on how you're going to govern and manage whatever you have, it's very crucial and important. So we should not expect the mosque to play a very fundamental role while the people who are running the mosque themselves are incapable of doing that. So we need to tackle the capacity building issue. We need to bring the Muslim community back to learning their religion. The assumption that when you learn your religion, you will not be fit for any other position other than being an imam, and what me and you know that you will be called for khitmah somewhere or make dua somewhere. Who in this country will want his kid to go through that? Definitely no one. So if that is the system that was created then, and it is in perpetual now, then we need to solve the problem so that we can be able to empower imams, empower the Muslim leaders in general, create a new pool of leaders who can be able to address issues in a more broader way and give out solutions to the general public as well.
Me and you today, as we walk the streets of this town, we are seen as the terrorists, and we've become apologetics. We have accepted it. Is that really who we are?
Well, first, brother, let me not lie to you, is the issue of terrorism. We shouldn't be apologetic to anyone. And most of the time, this is an issue that is being handled in a very simplistic manner. And I'll tell you again that the reason why it's being simplified, it is for purposes that is not well known. Terrorism, it is not an ideology. Terrorism is not a psychological mindset. Terrorism is a means to something else. And more often, it is actually a political rebellion, but coming out in a very vicious way, and you call it in an armed form. And that is why there is no universal definition of the word terrorism, or even a terrorist, who a terrorist specifically is. And everybody who wants to define a terrorist will tell you, show me what he does, and they'll tell you he is one. So these are notions which are very, very contested about. But having said that, let me not use the word terrorism for argument purposes. Let us discuss something maybe called using violence means to achieve whether political or whatever agitation people have. What is happening in this country as far as those kind of activities or terrorism is concerned, it's completely unacceptable. And I'll dare any person who will point out a learned Muslim scholar, a respectable Muslim scholar, who has aligned himself to these kind of activities.
Well, the issue here is that we understand all that, but already a perception has been built in the minds of the citizenry that this is happening. Have we done enough to discount these myths and to change those perceptions so that whenever we walk the streets, everybody will see us for who we are, that we are Kenyan Muslims, law-abiding citizens and not terrorists?
Well, I think many Muslim leaders and people in different circles have tried. But you see, with the media machinery that is operating, not even locally but internationally, and the perception that is being created, and the manufacturing of false that is being done with fake news and all that, it's becoming excessively difficult for a person like me to come and convince a group of people, and I do not own anything. Because when you have a big media house coming out and portraying a picture of somebody who is a Muslim committing acts which are not related to Islam, or it has been associated with Islam, I do not have the platform, neither do you. So repealing such kind of notion, it is not that easy. But we are always, as Muslim, expected to do what is within our means. The rest, it is not our responsibility. We do what we think is sufficient. We work hard to educate the general public, let them appreciate that this is now a global phenomena it is being projected every day in different form and style, and it's not only being associated with Muslims, it is coming out in a different form. You remember very well what is happening in Myanmar. As much as it's being described to be a humanitarian crisis, it's being described to be a massacre or something of that sort, it should also be defined as a state terrorism against the population who could not defend themselves.
Well, quickly before we take a break, one of the most interesting things that has come out from the non-Muslim community is that as Kenyan Muslims, most of our rights have been violated. Yes, we have tried the legal route and it has not worked as well as we would want it to work. What are the options for us as Kenyan Muslims for us to get to have our rights returned rightfully to us without upsetting the social norms that are there?
Well, I do not know what exactly you refer to as social norms, but you have a constitution in this country. And this constitution is actually a contract, a social contract. And there's nothing else that we should be referring to in this country other than abiding by the constitution. Any violation of the constitution, either the Muslim rights or anyone else's rights, should be clearly and strongly be fought against. So that is one. Second, rights are never given. You demand your rights. You fight for them. Nobody's going to give you a right on a silver platter. This constitution that this country is enjoying at the moment, people have suffered for it. And it was suffered until it was enacted or promulgated. But you have a very long way until the fruits of this constitution is felt. And this is a continuous struggle. even in what is being referred to as established democracies, you'll always find that there's always the push between what is my right against what is the state's responsibility towards me. But interestingly is that with the new structures in place, they're never perfect. But that kind of discussion, either in courts or anywhere else, it is what is going to make this country stick together. I'll refer to an issue of hijab, for example, which has been an issue that went to the High Court, and the High Court ruled against it being used. But interestingly, when the issue was taken to the appellate court, and the ruling was reversed, and when you read the judgment, you will realize that what the learned judges brought out was very much consistent with the global jurisprudence that is developing in regards to rights of the Muslims, or rights of freedom of worship and exercise of that in any other area of social interaction. So I think issues of right, they will always be there. It's not about Muslims' right against the non-Muslim rights, but his rights in general. And that's how we should be addressing them, is that it's my right to worship. It is my right to dress in whatever way I feel it is sufficient to the prescription or to the calling of my religion. And I should not be forced to do anything otherwise.
Well, we shall be taking a break, and tonight we are privileged to be hosting Brother Jafar Muhammad, who is a Sharia law expert, and we are responding to the concerns of the non-Muslim community as regards Islam and Muslims in Kenya. Thank you.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Welcome back to the show, and tonight we are responding to the issues that have been raised by the non-Muslim community as regards Islam and Muslims in Kenya, and we are hosting Brother Jafar Muhammad, a Sharia law expert, to help us look at these issues. Now, Brother Jafar Muhammad, among the issues that we had, it was very encouraging to know that there were a lot of positives that the non-Muslim community has as regards Islam and Muslims in Kenya. One of the issues was that they say that Muslims, we are very staunch in the practice of our religion. And I want to ask you, why is it that we have not translated our strictness, our staunchness into the affairs of this country, so that we can interrogate the leadership of the country, we can interrogate our own leadership as regards to how this country is being managed for the benefit of the entire community?
Shukran. First, it's very interesting that non-Muslims can be able to easily establish that someone is a staunch Muslim or not. Personally, I don't think that they can be able to do that, because they do not know what amounts to being staunch or not. But picking it the way they have said, I'll still tell you that that is not correct. We as Muslims in this country, as much as we are trying to be seen, or we seem to be staunch Muslims, but indeed we are not. Because the teachings of Islam should be projected in our lives. The teachings of this religion should run from morning to evening. So when we see inconsistencies in terms of us not being able to address specific challenges, which unfortunately we're also part and parcel of it, it's because that we've not practiced this Islam the way it should be. If indeed this country is suffering a problem, I don't know how much we're gonna dig deep and see. In counties that are being managed by Muslims, what is the rate of corruption? If comparatively is lesser than any other country or any other county, then we can say that maybe there is a correlation between the religious aspect and the behavior on the ground. But if the corruption, all the social vices that you see in this country, is still prevalent in counties that are predominantly Muslim, then there is also a problem from our end. This religion is being practiced in a cosmetic manner. And you will see the uproar from the Muslim community when issues related to hijab, issues related to the Qadi's court, and unfortunately most of them will not even abide by the Qadi's ruling. And most of them will want to go to the High Court to nullify the Qadi's ruling. So as much as we like to appease ourselves, that we are staunch, we are following this religion to the latter, but the truth is we are not properly following this religion. We are not abiding by the teachings of this religion.
Closely related to that, there's the element whereby in Kenya, our politics is all about lies, lies, and more lies. And from the response that we got from the non-Muslim community, they're saying, well, if you're to put on a scale of 1 to 10, when a Muslim is speaking, probably they would be saying the truth, and they gave us about an 8, which is quite a very strong score. Why can't we use this element of our truthfulness to sanitize the kind of politics that we practice in this country?
Well, that is very, very, very commendable. But you see, saying the truth, not stealing, these are values that are shared amongst all communities. I cannot imagine of any religion or any social group of people, either literate or illiterate, that will condone an act of lie, that we will support thieves. But the issue here is the characters and the behaviors of people is now completely being modified, and it's mutating to something terribly bad, is that society is now justifying behaviors and characters that were traditionally even abhorrent in their own respective society, without even considering the issues of Islam or any other religion. Why will somebody steal public resources and plunder whatever is there, but you will see that the society is applauding this person, considering the person as a selfless leader, especially when this person has passed away. And you will find them gathering in ceremonies and saying so-and-so was selfless leader, he was courageous, but everybody knows that this person never, even the principles enshrined in the Constitution, even the principles enshrined in their respective religion, even in their respective cultures, the person never adhered to them. We are not allowed to speak ill about the dead, but at least if it's now becoming a vice in the society, then we should come out and speak about it. The same thing now applies to Muslims. The responsibility and the burden on the Muslim, as far as I know, it's far much heavier. And the responsibilities from the voter side, it's even more abundant. This is because when you go to vote, from an Islamic point of view, what you're saying is so-and-so is far much better than Mr. X. If the reasons behind you choosing so, it is consistent with the teachings of Islam, and whatever probability of doubt you have about him is acceptable. But if you lie and you know very well the history of the person, he has no morals, he has no ethics, he has no standing in the society as far as managing public resources is concerned, then you're equally responsible in this kind of behavior. So if you want to change the political narrative, if you want to change the political behavior, we as voters, we as the populace, and definitely the learned sheikhs, who now should be coming in to give guidance to the society, not to vote for X and not to vote for Y explicitly, no, but to give general criteria of what Islam will consider that so-and-so is a leader, and he befits to hold a public position. By then, your responsibility in front of Allah will not be questionable.
Well, among our social plaudits was that we dress quite well. Our ladies in their hijab and the buibuis, and our men in their kanzus. Have we protected this identity well enough?
Well, I'm not here to judge because we all have our shortcomings, but we're speaking generally about our society. The issue of hijab, to start with, before this hijab becomes a material part that covers the whole body, it should actually be a hijab from our spiritual point of view, that it should cover first our hearts against all the evils. And it should go hand in hand. We're very appreciative that, alhamdulillah, the issue of hijab is now looked at from a very mainstream point of view. It's no longer an issue on the fringe. It is not an issue related to a specific group of people, but it's an identity. It is an identity for the Muslim women, that they've covered themselves in a way that their religion deserves, or in a way that their religion prescribes them to do the same. Equally, from the men's point of view, is that whatever you put on as a kanzu, or definitely on my end, I do not believe exactly that kanzu is a uniform form of identifying Muslim from non-Muslim, because it's also highly associated with some cultural context somewhere else in the part of the world. But be as it is that we are Muslims. Irrespective of how you dress, irrespective of how you put on, the behavior of Muslims should be projected in whatever you do. And protecting Islam, you protect it from your name, you protect it from your behavior, you protect it from all interactions that you do. We are not saying that people should be perfect, because no one is. But we can be able to work so much hard to live in a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be living. The teachings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam can be easily emulated in our lives. And this actually goes back to the issues of education, upbringing of children, the values that we instill in our society, the role of Imam, the role of the mosques, the way you've pointed out. It's a whole concerted effort.
Well, in our day-to-day lives, we have had a small activity which seem to have impacted greatly on our society. And the non-Muslim community has picked this one up to translate it into meaning that Muslims are wealthy. How do we translate that individual wealth that is being seen into an economic resource for the entire society?
Well, that is giving out charity. It is an act of worship from one end. The second part of it is actually a responsibility that the wealthy amongst the Muslim community should be able to assist. And this emanates from one important aspect from as far as Islam is concerned, and that is the brotherhood part. Because we as Muslims are brothers. You're one unit, one group of people that you should be sticking together irrespective of your race, irrespective of your background, irrespective of your status in society. We are all brothers. So if indeed we've come out so strongly to support each other, the support should be transformed into a sustainable activity. And here comes the role of financial institutions to play a very, very central intermediary role in uplifting the Muslim society. And not only that, because even when zakat is given out, it is not only given out to Muslims. You have the 8 categories of zakat, and amongst them you can even give it to a non-Muslim, so that they can be able to see that this religion is not selfish, both in terms of spiritual teachings and even financial assistance in terms of need. So the wealth management of the Muslim communities And the habit of saving, the habit of generating more income, more revenue for society, uplifting the community is something that as we speak now, you have financial institutions, which are Islamic financial institutions, should come out very clearly in support the need and the plight of the weaker in the society. And as they do that, it is also very, very paramount to them that they should not mimic the conventional banks in terms of being excessively hard on these people, but to assist so that the Muslim community in general can be able to uplift itself in a way that is going to make their poverty indices go down and improve their livelihood as well.
Well, as we wrap up our show, religion has become the modern arena of competition in society. Everybody is competing with everybody in matters religion. Do we as Kenyan Muslims stand a chance in the battle to win over souls?
Unfortunately, we have lagged behind. We're not doing so much, and this is because maybe we ourselves, we are not very appreciative of what we have. Because this religion gives out to, the religion has so much to give out to the humanity. The religion contains so much that a lot of people are suffering. It's because they're not getting answers to many, many questions. People will wake up in the morning, go to work, do a lot of things, earn a good living, but in the end, the life has no meaning. What is it that you struggle for? What is the end game? What is there after death? What is it that has been promised? These are fundamental questions that people do not have answers. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that there is nothing except it has been mentioned and He has given a remedy for it, then it is our responsibility as Muslims, both individually and institutions, social circles, to come out and invite people in this religion. Because when you invite people, you're creating bridges. And we're looking at others not as people who are destitute. We're looking at them as our brothers, that we love for them what we've already gotten for ourselves.
Thank you very much, Brother Jafar Muhammad. Thereby, viewers, you have it. The society that we live in serves as a mirror to all of us so that we can see what we are doing. Either it is good and either it is bad. And from the responses that we have received from the wider non-Muslim community, it is incumbent upon us as the Muslim community in Kenya to work towards changing all that has been perceived to be not correct, and also to work hard to make sure that all that has been seen to be good in us, to improve it and make it better. It is a responsibility on all of us to ensure that the banner of Islam and the livelihood of Muslims in Kenya gets to be better from today onwards.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.